people don't take the Old Testament too seriously because they figure that's the Jewish Bible. We're the New Testament. We're Christians, so that's our Bible. What would you say to that?
Well, I would say, first of all, do you take the pronouncements of Jesus seriously?
Absolutely.
The Sermon on the Mount, in the Sermon on the Mount, Jesus said, "Do not think that I have come to abolish the law or the prophets. I did not come to abolish, but to fulfill." That word fulfill has the sense of to confirm or to ratify. And showing that this is the case, he goes on to say, "But whosoever therefore shall break one of these least commandments shall be the least in the kingdom of heaven, and who shall teach men to obey them shall be the greatest in the kingdom of heaven." He's clearly having reference to the old covenant law.
What verse is that?
It's Matthew 5, verses 17 through 19. You may want to add verse 20 in there in the lookup. So we cannot simply say that the entirety of the old covenant law has been dispensed with. Now, there is a distinction in my mind in what we might want to call ceremonial law, like the institution of the priests and the tabernacle, the whole Levitical administration of the sacrifices is all obviously what we might want to call a ceremonial law. That the term is arbitrary, but I think it's a good catch-all phrase for the category. But this idea that we can just simply dispense with any really of the old covenant law, in some sense, even the ceremonial laws having to do with the sacrifices, are binding in a certain aspect, and the fact that they point us to Christ and Christ's sacrifice on the cross, and that is the offering it is to the Lord.
What if we just take the Ten Commandments? Isn't that good enough?
Well, in a sense, yes. The law as it is, the case laws of the Old Covenant, are in fact the application or the exposition of the Ten Commandments. So in a sense, you can say there really are only 10 commandments. All the other, the rabbis, as I understood, have enumerated the number of laws and said there's 613 specific laws that you can name out of the law of Moses. Those laws, in a sense, are applications of the 10 Commandments. So yes, you could say, yeah, just the 10 Commandments, but what does that mean in practice and in application? The case laws of the Old Testament show us that this is what that means. And Jesus says the least of these commandments. So we cannot dismiss the binding nature of the law, especially things that pertain to marriage, which is certainly, by anybody's definition, having to do with ethical and moral concerns. You cannot compare the institution of marriage, for example, to the sacrificing of animals or the Levitical priesthood. Under virtually nobody's definition or version of things that I'm aware of would do that.
Well, the Old Testament saints, a lot of them had more than one wife. Wasn't God just winking at their sin?
Well, again, that's another common misconception. The simple fact of the matter is polygamy, or to be more technically precise, polygyny, which is a man having multiple wives, is provided for under the Old Covenant law. You can go to Exodus 21:10, Deuteronomy 21 verses 15 to 17, where it talks about the right of the firstborn, and there are other laws that validate polygyny under the Old Covenant. Now, many commentators say, yeah, this is a concession to man's sinfulness, but that won't hold up under examination. The Bible itself says of itself, in the Psalms, for example, that His law is righteous and pure and righteous altogether. The idea that there is some sort of concession to sin or some sort of a compromise with man's sinfulness in the law has no theological support whatsoever in the Old Covenant. So no, that won't hold water. So what then? Well, why then is it there? Why are these provisions allowing polygyny in the Old Covenant law? Well, very simply, you go back to the creation. Polygyny, or polygamy, to use the common term, is a creational ordinance. It is inherent in the creation pattern.
But Adam only had one wife.
Adam only had one wife.
Didn't that set the standard that a man should just have one wife?
No, that is an example of the patriarchy. What is established in Genesis is the headship of the man over the woman. We see this in the fact in the New Testament commentary very explicitly says that Eve was made for Adam. And Paul in the New Covenant focuses on that and says the man was not made for the woman, but the woman for the man. And in the same passage it says the man is the head of the woman, even as Christ is the head of the church. Now, here's the thing about the creation principle. Within hierarchy, there can be many or multiple subordinates, but there can only be one head. Okay, Adam was the head of Eve according to Paul and according to the Old Testament scriptures properly understood. In my book, I enumerate multiple specific reasons proving that patriarchy was an established principle prior to the fall into sin. Okay, now take that principle and apply it. Augustine commented on this. I've got that on the back cover of my book. Take the principle and apply it. We, as Christians, we need to think not horizontally, but vertically. God is our authority. God thinks in terms of that kind of authority. Adam was the head of Eve from the beginning, from the creation. Now, there are good other reasons, the unity of humankind, for example, why there would only be one man and one woman at the very beginning, which really has nothing to do specifically with the marital relation. There are other factors, other reasons why that would be the case.
I guess they were naked as well, right? And that's not normative.
That's not normative after the fall, correct. Now, but here's the point I want to stress, and this I've been dealing with these issues for many years, and I've made this point many times. And this is something I really want people to concentrate on and think about this. Throughout the entire history, biblical history of the Jews, from Abraham to the time of Jesus Christ, and indeed even afterwards, well into the 11th century, when basically by force of law from Gentiles, Jews were finally made to abandon polygyny. But never in all of their history did the Jews ever come to the conclusion that because Adam only had one wife, that therefore God was establishing a specific pattern that any man could only have one wife. This thought never occurred to the children of Israel. Why? Why was it never there? Either it's part of the creation pattern or it's not. Which is it? And so I find this to be a very fundamental flaw. So one thing I want people to understand about my book is an argument from creation. Okay, the monogamy only viewpoint is not the only position that has a creational argument. The pro-polygyny position has a creational argument. It's based upon the principle of patriarchy. It says that polygyny, multiple subordinates within the hierarchy, is a legitimate principle, a legitimate creational principle. So first and foremost, the validity of polygyny is a creation principle established in Genesis from the very beginning.
Because of that hierarchy and the authority structure. Right,
that is the principle. I think it's very clear throughout Scripture that the concern of authority is paramount. We see this in the placement of the commandment of putting the tree of the knowledge of good and evil in the middle of the garden, and the Lord's telling Adam, do not eat of this particular tree. Or he's establishing his hierarchy. That is the point and the principle.